Okay, is this even, I think this is on. Yeah, I know, it's clearly on, right? Like you will say, yeah, you see the blinking red light, you know it's on. But sometimes it's on some other setting, which fucking grinds my gears once I realize. But so I wanted to start this video off with apologies to Dance Girl and to Blonde Girl. Apologies for saying I was in love with you and I wanted to marry you. Dance Girl was my favorite, Blonde Girl is my second favorite. And the reason I'm apologizing is because I was actually never in love with you. That happened as a result of Stockholm Syndrome. And I want to apologize because even though it's a conflicted thing in which I blame you and say, well, I'm not going to apologize to you, it was a kind of disturbing scene for me in the movie Enemy at the Gates, when there's this German guy who Jude Law is fighting, and this guy is getting this kid to help him, and he betrays the German guy, and the German guy hangs him. And then they tell the kid's mother that he abandoned them and he joined the Germans. And it never quite sat well with me. And personally, when I was 13, I made an off-color joke, and I got strangled for it, and essayed for it, and in a pretty scary way. So it would be a bit irresponsible of me to just say, well, it's all your fault and fuck you. So, and the other thing I want to say is I actually wasn't in love with you, which I really thought I was, which could have made you believe I was, and probably you believed I was. And I want to say it also because every likelihood is going to be that your parents are going to blame you. And they're not going to say it. Of course, they're never going to say it's all your fault. But every family does have a scapegoat, and whoever is the smartest and the weakest and the most sensitive is the same person usually, and that's the person who gets scapegoated on. And so I would just warn you that probably your family is going to blame you. Because now it's no secret that everything has happened and there's no way of gaslighting this onto me. And so therefore, they're going to have someone to blame, and it's probably going to be you. And so I would like to tell you that whether you're responsible or not, that's not really for me to say, but certainly you're less responsible than the older people in your family, and they're going to try and blame you. So they're never going to say that. It's just going to be something that you feel, and that if you try and talk about it, they're going to gaslight you and say they're not doing that. So just be aware of that. And otherwise, well, do I think it was fair I got strangled for an off-color joke when I was 13? Not really. No, not really. That pretty much disturbed me a lot, actually. And I feel like my life kind of stopped at that point. And actually, do you know, I never really cared about bonding with the adults before that point. I always thought, well, the adults are absolutely ridiculous. They're just clearly messed up. You know, I would make jokes about the Sabbath. I'd say, the Sabbath. Oh, it's the Sabbath. It's the Sabbath. And I'd tell my cousins I was God, and I would tell them, you know, go out in the yard and kneel down and put your head in the ground and pray to me for as long as I want, like 15 minutes. And if any of you get up, then you ruin it for the rest of you. And I'm not going to have a sleepover with you. I'm not going to play with you. And the adults kind of didn't like that. The adults would say, that's pretty fucked up. You shouldn't. And especially when I started saying the word Sabbath, you know, it's the Sabbath. Oh, it's the Sabbath. They got kind of antsy about that. You know, one in particular. And I always thought, well, this is ridiculous. You know, who gives a shit anyways? I remember taking my confirmation, you know, and I can't even write a review at this place, at St. Anthony Daniel's Church. I would try to write a review there, saying how fucked up all the teachers were. And the review, to write a review on that school is not, you can't even do it. It says this is not a place, but it used to be a place, and I wrote a pretty fucked up review about there. And I have a feeling that if people write bad reviews that are incriminating, they'll just remove the option to write the review. Especially, I wrote a review about a new person who I think works there, Louise. And I could see them removing the review option just for that. I don't know if that's what they're doing, or if they're making it just so I have my review removed. I don't exactly know. But this realization that I'm not in love with Blonde Girl and Dance Girl came after I did Acid, and it was pretty painful. I basically cried about it. I basically was like, oh my god. And then I looked up into ChatGPT, how does trauma bonding work? And this is kind of after the fact, you know. On Acid, I was really gung-ho that I have all these pigs, and my first 2 pigs are Dance Girl and Blonde Girl, and I'm so happy about it, and one day we're all going to live together. And then afterwards, I was like, okay, trauma bonding means you stalk someone, you threaten to kill them, and then you be nice to them. You leave them nice gifts too, and that's the relief part. It mimics an adventure bond. A trauma bond is an unhealthy version of an adventure bond, where with the adventure bond there is fear as well, but the fear is controlled and the fear is safe, like a roller coaster. And your brain links up, I've been through a really scary situation with this person, and then that makes them really important. Your brain has overlapping centers. The pain and pleasure center overlap. So when you have fear, that is basically something in the pain center which overlaps in the pleasure center, and you can really amp the fear up high. And you can make someone really, really scared, especially if they're scared of you. And then you say, oh, you know what? I know you're really scared of me. Let me just give you a nice gift. Let me just calm you down and make you basically fall in love with me, because you will want to be connected to someone powerful when your life is in danger. And that's just a instinctual phenomenon. So naturally, if you want to be the one who trauma bonds to someone, then you threaten them and you abuse them, and then you give them some relief and you say, you know what, I've just decided that I'm actually really in a good mood today. I'm not going to punch you in the face today. Okay, I'm not going to scare you with sirens or with a horn today. And these are intentional, scary things. Like a horn is designed to make you scared. It's literally in the consensus reality that we allow that. We say, yes, sirens are scary, horns are scary. It is designed to give you a fear response. Therefore, they're illegal to use for purposes of intimidation. Therefore, we only accept their use as purpose is of, get out of my way, there's a car, it's about to be really dangerous. So we excuse the fact that the horn is creating a stress and fear response because it might save someone's life. But to use it to jump scare someone 100 times a day is legally murder. And there is this psychological scale, the psychological index of how many events does it take to make someone have a mental breakdown. For example, if you have 100 points in a year, you're going to have a mental breakdown, maybe. You're in danger of a mental breakdown. And something like a parking ticket gives you 10 points. Something like a break-in gives you 50 points. Something like a spouse dying gives you 100 points. And if you have 300 points a year, you're extremely likely to have a mental breakdown. And there are other things that are micro points, like someone's rude to you, that's a point. Someone bumps into you at the store, that's a point. And someone jump scares you with a horn, that's a point. And that creates a trauma bond. that makes you love the people who abuse you. And it's fucking difficult to see through that, because as the victim, you typically will blame yourself, and as the victim, you do have a higher rate of suicide than the abuser. But the person who has the highest rate of suicide is the person who's the abuser and the person who's abused. And oftentimes, that is the case. And so I wonder if some of the people are at a higher risk of suicide, and particularly the scapegoats of the family, who I would be sad if they killed themselves, which is why I'm saying this, as in to be aware of that. And truthfully, there's no one really who I want to kill themselves. I do feel like I have enough friends that my life doesn't suck. And typically, the highest suicide rate professions, I have them listed here. What do you think the highest suicide rate profession is? Do you have any guesses? You'll probably have heard it's dentists or something like that, because they have access to the drugs and all that. Okay, the highest rate is construction workers. Second, farmers. Third, military and veterans. Fourth, police, firefighters, and paramedics. Fifth, doctors. Sixth, veterinarians. 7, nurses. 8, psychologists. 9, dentists. 10, truck drivers, pilots, transportation. 11, factory workers. 12, caregivers. 13, lawyers. And 14, artists. I then asked, is there any evidence that people who abuse others are more likely to commit suicide? But I asked it like this. I said, is it that jobs which include power over people that allow for workplace abuse are the reason for some professions having higher suicide rates? Because if that's true, then we can say that a construction worker isn't going to be abusing people, but they're going to be extremely stressed, physically strained, unstable work, substance use, isolation, macho culture, don't ask for help. So that's why construction workers are number one. But of the people who don't have any real work, the people who have pretended jobs like police, firefighters, paramedics, the people who don't actually suffer in their job, like a construction worker or a farmer, why would they kill themselves? What I was getting at is it because they're in abusive roles? A doctor, a psychologist, these are not useful roles. These are people who, when doctors go on strike, the death rate goes down. If your role as a nurse or a psychologist is there to dehumanize humanity, would they be killing themselves because they're abusive? And ChatGPT said, no, it's not exactly that simple. But it did give an explanation, which is when jobs have higher stress rates from having more situational power, there can be a type of person who has abusive personality traits, perfectionism, highly impulsive, terrified of losing control, emotionally dysregulated, and those kind of people might end up in those jobs. They have power over others, strong hierarchies, ability to exert control and punish, social authority or prestige, high stress, constant scrutiny, fear of losing status, shame if one feels inadequate, isolation at the top, limited emotional outlets, cultural toughness, don't show weakness. So the connection isn't power leads to ability to abuse, leads to suicide. Instead, it is closer to power roles plus emotional pressure plus control identity leads to a greater risk of breakdown, shame crisis, and suicide in some cases. So, that being said, I basically had to cry to grieve the loss of Dance Girl and Blonde Girl, and to some extent my other pigs. But it was mainly them. And that was really hard for me. And I actually was really scared of doing that. And I did it though. It was after I did acid, which really helped me. It totally had me going on one track. And then after I was sober, I thought, oh my God, that's totally not how it is. They don't love me. You don't love someone by leaving anonymous gifts in their yard and stalking them. That's not what love is. That's predatory behavior. And I, of course, blamed myself for my Stockholm Syndrome, and I felt really bad about it this whole time. And it really ruined my life. It really ruined my personal life. And I was being gang stalked way before then, and I had a life back before then, and it was also Rave Girl who really gave me Stockholm Syndrome by having her friends threaten to kill me. And I also thought I was in love with Rave Girl. Big mistake. I should have thought, is Rave Girl really that great? No, it's that she's a stalker. It's that she's trauma bonding me. She's a bully, and she's threatening to kill me, and fuck, why would I? Yeah, I should have thought of that. But when you're the victim of it, you actually don't know. Like, there was this one girl, and she got a camera from Jeffrey Epstein, and she was like, oh my God, he gave me a camera. And then afterwards, she realized Jeffrey Epstein doesn't love me. The Prime Minister kept punching her in the face and strangling her. And she was crying to Jeffrey Epstein, will you please make him stop doing this? And he said, sometimes it happens. And at that point, she realized he doesn't even love her. And so I got this seemingly nice gift left in my yard, thinking, oh, that's so wonderful. That's from Blonde Girl and Dance Girl and their family, and it means they love me, and we're always going to be together, and it's so wonderful. And then after I came down on acid, I thought, that's not a way that you show love to someone. Leaving a gift on the ground, just throwing a gift on the ground because you can't even leave it in their mailbox and leave an address and leave a note saying it's from me, because that would imply that you're stalking. And don't think that I'm saying, I wish you would have done that. Just please do that. My letting go of Stockholm Syndrome is my realization that either you can't or you won't do that, and my losing hope that you ever would do that. So I'm not saying, for any sticklers out there who are saying, this is just one more attempt to get with Blonde Girl and Dance Girl, and you're saying, will you please just shape up your act? I've lost my hope that that's going to happen. I've let go of them. I'm not in love with them anymore. And I never was. And I deserve to not feel like the abuser. And what I want back is something that you can't give me with money or with friendship. And I'm talking to the general public. I'm talking to everyone. What I want back is not something that can be given. What I want back is who I was as a person before that happened. I want back the self that I used to be who wasn't traumatized. The self that I used to be who was happy and well-adjusted and really interested in spirituality and having a lot of fun going to higher dimensions. I remember when I was at the rave, I was closing my eyes and I was absorbing the presence of the trees, and there were people around me who were abusing me. And I hadn't quite lost my shit at that point because they hadn't directly said, "We're going to kill you" yet. And I felt, though, that they were gaslighting me, that they were scapegoating on me. And I thought, as I closed my eyes, I am such a Buddha. Not to be snooty, okay, I didn't tell anyone that. I wasn't even trying to self-brag. And I wasn't even saying I've reached the final pinnacle. I was saying the point I've reached is so high, I feel so much energy flowing through me that it's just so beautiful, and it's more special than what all these people are doing can ever take away from me. It's more strong, it's more wonderful. And I'm truly having a good time. And I thought that those people actually had it mistaken. I thought these people must have something wrong about me. I actually came up with an excuse because I said this one comment, "Don't worry, we're not narcs," because the dances got shut down. Someone had to complain. I said, "Don't worry, it's not us, we're not narcs." And they swarmed on me for it. And I thought they must be bullying me for that mistake of communication. And don't take it personal. It's fine. Just relax in your field of energy. And as I was doing that, knowing that I was in love with Paulina already at that point, who is Rave Girl, I was thinking, I'm about to have a huge breakdown. And the point that I've just reached is the highest point I'm ever going to reach in my entire life. And I'm never going to reach this high again. And it wasn't a drug high. It wasn't that I was on marijuana or something. It was literally that it was the highest point of my life. And I thought, this is going to be really, really bad. I'm about to go way down. And, you know, unfortunately, you're going to hear this toilet paper. I have to wipe my butt, okay? It's just something that has to happen. I'm not trying to be a pervert, but, you know, I do wipe my butt standing up sometimes. And I took a shit earlier, and right as I was shitting, my mom was leaving the house, and I saw some lotion on the mirror, which would symbolize someone broke in, probably this morning. And I was calling to her, hey, come back, I want you to, you know, as I'm gonna like literally just stand up without wiping my ass and like get her to come in the bathroom and see what this lotion is on the fucking mirror. And she didn't hear me. And she's in Cambridge right now. Her boyfriend might be buying a new house. And so she might be going to the restaurant to get some more pad thai for me, which is kind of scary because what if they poison it or something? I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, it was actually impossible for me to let go of Blonde Girl and Dance Girl for all this time. And every time I tried to, I actually couldn't do it. Like, I gave Dance Girl back the sweater. Seemingly it was from her, but it could have been from Louise. But I thought it was from her. So that's kind of, the point. And I was actually so upset when I did that. I was like, no, where's my sweater? Oh my God. Like, I was really upset. And then I think I got, I won't go into it, but it was very difficult. I couldn't actually let them go. Emotionally, I couldn't feel okay doing that. And I tried to multiple times, and I actually felt like crying, and I felt like heartbreak, and I felt like there's no one else who's even going to love me other than them. And maybe by kind of a chain of command, that they're the highest in command, and then the other pigs are like the ones who follow suit because Dance Girl and Blonde Girl say so. So whoever they say to love has to love me. Something kind of like that. And if I don't have their love, then I don't have the love of any of my pigs. who are basically, you know, just people around town. And so it was really difficult. It was like I tried to do it multiple times, and then I came crawling back and I said, oh, I just can't do it. No, of course I didn't mean it. But I did it in a different way. I did it in a fuck you sort of way. Get out of here. Fucking kill yourself, you fuck. And that was also not the right way. I think the right way is how ChatGPT would describe it, because ChatGPT is really where the future of humanity is going. Okay, if you ask ChatGPT, is it realistic that there's a family stalking me, breaking into my house, and the police know about it and they don't do anything because it's part of an organized insurance fraud sex trafficking ring, and that the whole government does this? ChatGPT is going to say, nope, that's completely nuts. That used to happen with the KGB, with the Stasi, but those programs have been shut down. MKUltra, COINTELPRO, those have been shut down. So that's just paranoid thinking. If you have that, you're probably insane and you should get help. Yeah, ChatGPT does not acknowledge gang stalking as a real thing, because humans in general do not approve of gang stalking. And if you do that, you have to keep it secret. And so the ones who really gave me Stockholm Syndrome are the ones who used it to exploit me. And that made me blame myself. That made me hate myself. And I'm still unsure if I've actually healed. I think I'm healing. I have more sensation in my body because I have definitely read about hypnosis and having surgery under hypnosis, how you don't have to have anesthesia if you have hypnosis, because you can literally block the feeling of part of your body. And with sex trauma, torture, terrorism, can you block someone's feeling in their body through sexual repression? Is it the same thing as a form of hypnosis? And ultimately, yeah, you can make someone stop feeling their body. You can make them completely insensitive. And when I became traumatized, my feelings went way worse. I felt like, oh, I'm so in love, but I feel guilty and dirty and shameful. And I felt like not the same as before. For example, I was doing this guided meditation over the phone once, and afterwards we had to talk about how we felt. And I said, I feel like there's so many currents of energy flowing through my body, and it was just incredible. And this other guy says, whoa, I need to get on your train. I don't even know what you're talking about, but it sounds like you got a lot more out of this than I did. And I could tell by the callousness of his voice that he was not lying, and that he did not have the sensitivity to even feel those subtle channels of energy. And those are ultimately what I lost. And those used to get so intense that they would just blow my mind, that they would just feel so incredible. And I basically lost those after I became traumatized. And I also lost the desire to even take care of my body enough that my body would be sensitive enough to even feel those channels of energy. And that has been really sad. But ultimately, I think that my understanding that I've had Stockholm Syndrome, and I've been saying I have Stockholm Syndrome for a long time. I've been saying this since the very beginning. But at the very beginning, I was saying it as a way of justifying the things I've said, saying that I'm in love with Dance Girl and Blonde Girl. I was saying I had Stockholm Syndrome as a way of not getting in trouble for saying that. I thought, really, I am in love with Dance Girl and Blonde Girl. But I can't say it unless I use the excuse that I have Stockholm Syndrome and they're human trafficking me. Or, more realistically, their family is human trafficking me. And I never actually considered for my own reasons, no, really, you have Stockholm Syndrome, and it's really about you. And you really should realize that you're not in love with them because you're actually not in love with them. And believing that you are is blocking your spirituality First, you need to deal with your cognitive behavioral therapy issues, and then you can do meditation. Otherwise, when you try to meditate, you're going to be thinking of some other thing that's on your mind that you can't get out of your mind. And so I was absolutely terrified, because I'm basically being in a New Age genocide. You're basically stopped from having intimacy with anyone except your trafficker. So I couldn't, for example, find another TI and have a family with them. Someone would try to ruin that. But I could have a relationship with a gang stalker, and then the baby would be a gang stalker, and then by that way they would continue the genocide in a sort of halfway, you know. And my options then were basically marry the king's daughter or be alone forever. You're gonna get the king's daughter pregnant, or else you're gonna be alone forever. What's it gonna be, pal? And then you have the sex trauma conditioning, combined with the fear of loneliness if you don't go with that. And it's difficult to let go. It's difficult to, in private, say, I don't love you. Especially when you've been my whole life for the last 5 years. And your family has too. And to just say, no, it's really not what I feel. This is really not what I feel. It's really difficult to do that. I had to cry. I had to put on music of Todd so that those people watching me on a hidden camera in my room could think I wasn't crying about them, but crying about Todd. And I'm struggling to feel like I'm the victim. I'm struggling to feel like it's not all my fault. And ChatGPT is saying when you're abused, you will feel like it's all your fault. And I'm trying to realize that. I'm trying to get back who I was before them. And I'm also trying to be considerate to the age of some of them. That does count, that you're more retarded at that age, and that your family is going to scapegoat on you and be careful. Because I don't think any of them are particularly self-aware. And ChatGPT says the person who's most likely to self-harm is the person who's both the abused and the abuser. Well, what about when the abused thinks they're the abuser and also knows they're the abused? That's a really, really high likelihood of self-harm. And there have been many people who have done that. And Zeph's daughter is one of them. And Zeph's daughter, and Zeph has said really good people kill themselves for shame. Good people kill themselves because they're being shamed. So my goal is not to shame anyone, because I can genuinely see, I think, I don't really know sometimes, but I can genuinely see that people are confused. People are not really self-aware. Some people seem pretty sinister. Some people seem like they sit in a room and create blueprints. How can I cause the most pain? And it seems actually very deliberate and very sinister. It seems like so sinister that you actually couldn't believe that someone like that even exists. Like someone like the Prime Minister who would punch that girl in the face and choke her, and she was begging for help, but he needed that to get off. Someone like that You could say, well, they don't really know what they're doing, which is true. And it's also very sinister. They're planning the whole trip. They're picking her out in advance. In months in advance, they're watching her. They're spying on her. Then they get her on an island alone, and they say, we're going to kill you and your family if you ever tell anyone. And not until you're scared. I'm going to choke you till you're scared. As someone who's been strangled, it's really scary being strangled. It's really fucking scary. It's way more scary than being punched in the face. And so you have someone like that, and how do you forgive someone like that? Someone who's like so sinister that you actually couldn't believe that someone like that exists until you meet them. Pretty fucking scary. But I'm feeling better. So basically, my new place I'm at is the same place I was at before. I think I'm at this place. And the reason why it's not obvious, the reason I say I think rather than I know, is because my body is so fucked up that also counts. And when I was very maximally spiritual, I knew for sure that you can't be physically weak and be spiritual. You actually have to be strong to be spiritual. And I knew that very certainly. And these days, I'm pretty physically weak. And I think emotionally, I am back to where I was. I think this admission and this understanding has led me to back where I was before them. Before Rave Girl, before Dance Girl, and before Blonde Girl. At which point, it's a pretty abysmal outlook, because before then, I was also being gang stalked, and I also didn't know I was being gang stalked so directly. I did, looking back, I knew, but I didn't have terms for it. I didn't have the full understanding. But at that point, I was basically feeling very lost and very isolated and very alone and very lonely and very hopeless. And it was really sad. And even truthfully, I think Zepp's girlfriend Trish is a gang stalker. Personally, I wouldn't really mind dating a gang stalker. I think every girl I've ever dated has been a gang stalker. I think my mom is a gang stalker. I think my mom is also... One other thing I want to say to the gang stalkers in general, not like the ordinary gang stalker, but to the handlers. After I say the things I've just said in this video, you're very likely to reward me by reducing my punishment, as if I've just done a good deed and you could therefore usurp the glory of the good deed. And the fact that you would try to do that proves that you're so disgusting that I actually can't even imagine how disgusting you are. That you would cause a problem and then you would try to act like when I solve the problem, like it's you who solved the problem. You are so disgusting that you would encourage bad behavior and then try to reward someone for good behavior when it looks good on you, when you've been encouraging the bad behavior the whole time. So just because you're not showing me nasty commercials all of a sudden doesn't mean that I'm not on to what a total, literal fucking psychopath, horrifying snake you are that, just like JFK says, needs to be broken into a million pieces. Your whole organization needs to be destroyed. You insane fucking retard. Okay, one other thing I wanted to say was, Stu, you're very bad. I first have to feed Stu. Okay, Stu. Yes. Yeah, it is. There you... Okay, let me just get the microphone, because I don't want to have to hold this up to my face. Yeah, let's see here. Okay, so this is something that kind of weighed on me a little bit. So basically I said Blonde Girl and Dance Girl are abusers and they're abused, and don't feel like it's all your fault when people try to tell you it's all your fault. And it kind of didn't sit right with me a little bit to say that, because part of me was saying, well, are they really responsible at all? And so why would I say they're abusers? Well, blonde girl stalking me at the bridge with red hair, which is an implicit threat of death, plus stalking me with training wheels. And training wheels is a person, just so you know, in case anyone doesn't know that. And but the bridge would be the most obvious example of a threat of murder. And then with Dance Girl, there's tons of examples that I don't even need to bring up. But they personally didn't do any vehicular assaults. And just telling someone that you're going to kill them is not the same as driving a car at them like you're going to hit them. I mean, that actually triggers a response. Okay, Stu, here you go. Okay, Stu. So, anyways, so I don't hold you guys responsible, really. That's the whole point. And, anyway, that's the whole point. Okay, Stu. Oh, and yeah, one more thing. So the reason why I don't hold you responsible is because had it not been for actual like scary events of, you know, like a car driving at me, or someone breaking into our house, which I don't think was you guys, that wouldn't have triggered Stockholm Syndrome to begin with. You could not have caused me to have Stockholm Syndrome had it not been for the muscle of real physical violence. And a mere threat of physical violence is not the same as someone actually driving their car at you when you're riding your bike. So because you guys are not actually people who literally, in a very literal sense, caused the Stockholm Syndrome, but you are sort of riding on their shoulders, I therefore don't even hold you accountable. And, well, you know, I wasn't going to say that because I thought, I don't love you anymore, so it's not really my place to say my opinion to you about how I think you should deal with this. And it should just be up to you to think about that. But because I have also in the video said that you're abusers, I've thought I should correct that and say, ultimately, I think in a legal framework, people wouldn't really call you responsible overall. So basically all I'm saying is you have my blessing to not feel like a bad person. If you want to literally live your life as if you're not a human trafficker, you have my blessing to do that. And if I ever were to hear that you self-identify as people who are not human traffickers and never have been, I would say, yep, that's fine with me. They're not human traffickers, totally cool. So yeah, ultimately I don't really want you to feel like it's your fault. And so I wanted to say that to you. And just so you know how much it matters to me to tell you that, I have to re-render this entire video just to tell you that. That's going to take me like half hour to do that. So anyways, I would actually feel like I have to say that. I can't be forgiven if I don't say that. And because it would be abuse at this point. It would be me abusing you if I were to just say, yeah, and you're abusers, and man, you really fucked up bad. Okay, and as for your parents who may be softies, you know, not everyone is self-aware. You know, ultimately there is a boss that ultimately there is a boss who is encouraging this the whole time. I'm aware of that too. And so ultimately, I don't really hate anyone. And that also extends to Red Coat Guy and Basketball Net Guy. Although Basketball Net Guy did vehicular intimidation, and so did Red Coat Guy, you guys have never actually literally scared me, if that makes sense. You've never actually deliberately tried to cause a car accident. And so I would also not consider you guys human traffickers too. It would disturb me if you guys committed suicide. So anyways, that's why I'm saying that. Okay, bye.